What does it take to convince the Walt Disney Company to build a theme park with no castle, no parade, and no Mickey Mouse center stage? It takes a 400-page pitch, a visionary Imagineer with an earring, and a belief that immersive storytelling could change how people see the natural world. Welcome to Pop Culture Passport, your ultimate guide to quirky and cool destinations across the US. I'm your host, Beth Scalacci, aka the Roman Yeti, here to help you dive into the world of theme parks, uncover film and TV locations, and explore quirky museums, roadside attractions, and legendary venues that capture the heart and soul of this unique country. So grab your pop culture passport and let's discover destinations that resonate with your interest, not just with what's trending on social media. Are you ready? Let's roam! Welcome back. Today we're exploring the wild and fascinating origins of Disney's most ambitious and perhaps most misunderstood theme park, Animal Kingdom, aka also one of my favorite parks. But it's the anniversary coming up on April 22nd, and I just thought this would be a good time to sort of dive into the park's history a bit. As you know, this park isn't built around fairy tales or future tech. It's rooted in something far more complex, and that's our relationship with the natural world. And the story of how it came to be is full of creativity, risk, internal debates, and a vision that challenged everything Disney parks were known for. Now, this is part one of a two-part series, and today's episode focuses on the park's creation from Joe Rohde's vision to the battles over dragons versus dinosaurs, and the conservation ethos that's at the heart of the park. So let's rewind the clock back to the early 1990s and take a walk through how Animal Kingdom came to life. So, as I said, this happened in the early 90s, and the Walt Disney Company was expanding fast. Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and still Disney MGM Studios at the time were drawing huge crowds in Florida, and leadership wanted a fourth park, but it didn't want to repeat themselves. They needed something new, something that offered a different experience to their guests. Enter the icon, Joe Rohde. Now, Joe was a veteran Imagineer, and his background was in art, theater, and anthropology. You could spot him by his iconic earring, and he wasn't your typical theme park designer. And that's exactly why this idea worked. Joe had a vision, a park celebrated the living world, and not through exhibits or lectures, but through immersive storytelling. He wanted guests to feel awe in the presence of nature, to care about conservation because they had been moved emotionally, not just informed intellectually. But this wasn't a small idea. No, this was a massive, living, breathing park filled with real animals, layered theming, and a completely different kind of magic than Disney had seen before. So, how do you sell that to executives who are used to building castles? Well, Joe and his team created a 400-page concept book to pitch the idea internally. It wasn't just pretty pictures, it was essays, cultural research, proposed attractions, and detailed environmental plans. It was such it was more like a manifesto than it was a proposal, I think you could say. And Rhodey argued that Disney could build a park that told stories through landscapes, not just shows and rides. Now, there was going to be shows and rides, but also through landscapes and experiences. And he emphasized three kinds of animals that the park should explore: real, ancient, and imagined. And Joe didn't just sit in a design studio. Oh no, he hit the road. He led research trips to Africa, Nepal, India, and Indonesia. And these weren't just your run of the mill sightseeing tours. No, Imagineers visited temples, they met with local artisans, and even bought handmade building materials and props that would later be used in the park. In many ways, Animal Kingdom was curated like a museum is, rather than how a theme park is built. Joe insisted on authenticity, mud bricks made of real mud, wood carvings with cultural meanings, and imperfect architecture because nature isn't perfect. He banned straight lines because nothing in nature is a perfect right angle. Even the walking paths are designed to gently curve, creating a sense of discovery. Now, Rohde was known for saying that storytelling through design was just as powerful, if not more, than storytelling through dialogue or narration. Animal Kingdom would prove that idea on a massive scale. So, here's the three-part vision that they had for Animal Kingdom. And it was the thematic foundation of the park. And it was built around three types of animals that I'd already mentioned. So it's real animals. And this is found in the safari and the nature trails. And these represented our real world connections to wildlife. Then second is ancient animals. And these are the dinosaurs in Dinoland, USA, connecting us to Earth's past. And third, the imagined animals, the mythological creatures that were meant to live in a land called Beastly Kingdom. This three-part vision made it into everything from design documents to promotional materials. In fact, you can still see the dragon from Beastly Kingdom on signs throughout the park. But as the park's budget tightened, a big decision had to be made. And that was the battle between Beastly Kingdom and Dinoland USA. And yes, we already know who won that battle. But Beastly Kingdom was meant to be a realm of fantasy, a land where unicorns roamed and dragons guarded castles. It would include a thrilling indoor coaster called Dragon Tower, a serene boat ride through a land of gentle mythical creatures, and a hedge maze filled with mischievous spirits. It sounds so fun. But at the same time, the world was in the middle of a dinosaur craze. We had Jurassic Park, and Disney was creating its own animated dinosaur film. So leadership, they saw dollar signs in dinosaurs. So they went with Dinoland USA, which could be built more quickly using existing ride systems and off-the-shelf carnival concepts. The marquee ride, originally named Countdown to Extinction, used the same ride system as Indiana Jones Adventures at Disneyland. So that meant less R&D. So unfortunately, as we all know, Beastly Kingdom was shelved. But you may or may not know this. If you've listened to previous episodes of this podcast, then you do know this. Some Imagineers who had been working on Beastly Kingdom left Disney and joined Universal Creative. And not long after, Islands of Adventure opened with a land called the Lost Continent, which was filled with dragons, castles, and even a 2-track coaster where dragons once stooled. Sound familiar? Yeah, so in a way, Beastly Kingdom did come to life, just not at Disney. Now, from the beginning, Animal Kingdom wasn't just about entertainment. Joe Rohde made sure it had a purpose. And conservation would be at the heart of the park's mission. In 1995, 3 years before the park even opened, Disney launched the Disney Wildlife Conservation Fund. Today it's known as the Disney Conservation Fund. I guess removing wildlife was an issue. I'm not sure. And it supported over 2,000 conservation projects in more than 120 countries. And today, you can still help this fund by getting your Starbucks fix in the park. So the Starbucks location at Animal Kingdom, which is called Creature Comforts, sells a special coffee that supports the fund. So go in, order yourself a flat white latte, and a portion of the proceeds goes to the Disney Conservation Fund. So that's pretty cool. And those efforts specifically are to protect the cotton top tamarins. So, two good things. You get your coffee and you do some good for conservation. So remember that next time you're in the park. Well, the one time that I'll say go to Starbucks and not Joffrey's, I think. Yeah, do some good out there. And this message of care and stewardship is built into the park itself. I mean, for example, we have the Kilimanjaro safaris. You're not going to find cages or obvious barriers on that ride. Instead, animals are separated using clever landscape designs, moats, elevation changes, and hidden fences. If you really start looking around while you're on that ride, you will notice some of these things, but they're just part of the environment. So um, they really did a great job with that. And even the sound design reinforces the themes of Animal Kingdom. So in the Oasis, which is, that lush entry path, you hear bird song from multiple continents layered together. Of course, it's not random. It's orchestrated. Everything at Disney is. We know this. But the park gently nudges guests to slow down, notice details, and consider their role in the ecosystem. And it does this without hitting you over the head with guilt or lectures. So, to ensure that the animal experiences were rooted in real science and compassion, Disney brought in several outside advisors. And one of the most notable was Dr. Jane Goodall, the amazing and world renowned primatologist known for her groundbreaking work with chimpanzees. Now, Dr. Goodall toured the park during development and offered feedback on everything from animal habitats to educational messaging. But her impact wasn't just technical. She also made a deeply personal request, and that was one animal carving on the Tree of Life be a chimpanzee in honor of her life's work. And that carving is still there today. A subtle but powerful tribute to a woman whose influence on animal conservation is felt around the world. And her involvement really gave Animal Kingdom that scientific credibility and that emotional depth. Like if she believed in it and they were doing it right, um, it was authentic. So it was really cool to see her involvement. Now, as you can imagine, creating a theme park filled with live animals is no small feat. That's why the Jungle Cruise has animatronic animals, even though Walt wanted real ones. The logistics are just unlike anything Disney had attempted before. So, for starters, the landscaping began years in advance, and over 4 million plants, trees, and shrubs were brought in from 6 continents. And some trees were so massive that they had to be moved with cranes and helicopters. There's also very strict federal regulations they had to meet. They had to build state of the art veterinarian facilities, backstage habitats, and transport systems for hundreds of species of animals. And then we can't forget about the weather. Florida heat, we know, is no joke. And the park's heavy use of outdoor trails and limited air conditioning became a concern during previews. Now, one of the biggest criticisms early on was that the park didn't have enough attractions, and guests were expecting something closer to a Magic Kingdom than a zoo. But what they got was something slower, more exploratory, and more philosophical, and many people didn't know what to make of it. There was even an early controversy involving the original script of Kilimanjaro Safaris. Um, if you rode this early on in the park, you know what I'm about to talk about. In the first version, it was about poachers, and poachers had killed a mother elephant, and guests saw a lifeless body during the ride. And the intent was to highlight the dangers of poaching, but obviously, families were not prepared for that level of emotional realism, and they quickly rewrote that ending. It still talked about poachers for a long time, and now I think it talks a lot about like the um, Tuscan stuff used for electronics and you know that kind of conservation. But I remember the poachers. There was a gun. There was a whole lot of things going on. So it's a lot more peaceful of a ride now. But, the park did open, given all the setbacks, and it opened on Earth Day, which was April 22nd, 1998. And not every land was finished, and not every guest understood it, but it was open, and it was unlike anything else in Disney's portfolio. So Disney's Animal Kingdom wasn't built to follow the usual theme park formula. It was built on belief, a belief that guests could slow down, engage with the natural world, and feel something meaningful in the process. Now, Joe Rohde and his team of Imagineers brought this radical vision to life. It was one rooted in art, science, and emotion. From the tree of life to the details etched into temple walls, from the carefully curated soundscapes to the real impact of the Conservation Fund. Animal Kingdom proved that storytelling doesn't always need a character meet and greet or a fireworks finale. Though Animal Kingdom did have several several meet and greets. But, that path through a quiet forest trail was also just another option from the thrill rides we were all used to. So, in next week's episode, I'm going to pick up where we leave off today, and we're going to explore how the park has changed from over time. We'll talk about what was there when it opened, and then we'll talk about additions of Asia and Expedition Everest, to the success of Pandora, and the struggles with nighttime and daytime entertainment, the extinction of Dinorama. And, again, we're going to look at what's coming next. I know we've talked about it, but we're going to talk about it again. So I love this park. It'll be like just hearing what it went through, the amount of animals that's there. It just, if it's not your favorite park, I get it. And if it's still a half day park, I get it again. But just to appreciate what it took to make it happen and that it's still going strong and growing today. It's just really amazing. So, at least we can have that appreciation, right? And with that, we add another stamp to our pop culture passport. I hope that this episode inspires you to get out and explore all that is quirky and cool, even in your own backyard. Follow, download, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Tell a friend and leave a review if you like what we're doing. It really helps the show to grow. You can also follow me on Instagram or Facebook. Just search for The Roaming Yeti. Keep roaming and finding your fun.